Hello everyone, Preston Combs, Flatstick Academy here, and the purpose of this video is twofold. One, because I know myself and several other instructors probably have players getting ready to head to brand new golf courses for US Open qualifying or any other number of area tournaments that their players might be participating in. And if you only get one practice round, I definitely want to make sure my players are prepared to best assess the green reading and also a little bit of help with their approach shots too. So, in light of the recent USGA and R&A statement that came out addressing the possible reviewing of the increasingly detailed materials that players are using to help with their green reading, I'd like to think that there might be an easier way to go about it, something that won't be in violation of any rules should something happen in the coming months here, and an easy way just to assess overall contours and shapes of the surfaces. So without further ado, we're going to get started by taking a look at the basic green reading shape that I like to start my players out with. And that first is going to be by setting an outline of the green, and you'll see a couple of lines drawn across the putting surface here. If I'm using a single line, like you'll see in the top right portion here and the bottom center portion, I like to treat those as just general contours of the putting surface. Should there be a false edge or a back tier of sorts, I want to make sure that those are outlined on my map. And if there's a large tier in the middle of the putting surface, you'll see I use two lines running across the green in order to represent that area. Those are portions of the green that I want to be aware of with my approach shots, and I try to draw it as close as possible to scale. Maybe not necessarily while I'm out on the golf course, but night before the event while I'm going through and prepping for the round the next day. I want to try to make sure that I get the orientation of everything as close to accurate as possible. That way, when I have a pin sheet, should I not be allowed to use a rangefinder of sorts, I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to best judge, is this pin located on a back slope, is there a false edge in the vicinity, and I want to know those things before I get started. My next step is to add arrows to those contour lines on the putting surface. I'll use shorter arrows like you'll see in the bottom portion of the green for slopes in that 1 to maybe 3% window, indicative of a false edge. And if they're running towards me, that means the slope is headed towards the front portion of the green. If you check out the arrows in the back portion of the green, you'll notice they're headed towards the back right corner, and that's indicative of a slight upslope. And the arrows right here across the middle, slightly longer, indicative of a steeper slope, probably something associated with a tier of sorts, maybe 4 or 5%. And I'll typically see those associated with the double solid lines that I've drawn right across the middle of the green there. That's usually a sign that I can use that hill right there as some sort of sideboard. And for example, if there was a hole location right where this blue circle is, I definitely have some room left of the flag that I could use to bank the ball into the hole location, make it a little bit more accessible. My third step will then to be add some general contour lines across the putting surface. Most of those are 1, maybe some 2% slopes that just give me some sort of indicator as to the general direction of the surface in those given areas. Then my last step is going to be to take a look at the potential hole locations. I like to dot those out and maybe get familiar with what's going on around the hole in that part of the world. If I'm an Aimpoint Express user, I like to just check my level very, very quickly during my practice round at, let's say, 5 to 10 feet around the north, south, east, and west points around those hole locations, just so I can have an idea as to what's getting ready to happen next. If I can better predict what I'm getting ready to run into on the putting surface, I can make better decisions on my approach shots. If for some reason I miss a green, I might be able to better predict what's getting ready to happen once the ball gets on the surface for my chip. And definitely want to encourage those that are very good with their feet for Express to start incorporating that on some of their chip shots around the putting green. But again, most importantly, I just like to know what's coming next. If there's an opportunity to use a sideboard or avoid a false front, I like to think that during my practice round I've done my homework to sufficiently map the general contours, sideboards, false edges, and potential hole locations so that I'm best prepared for tournament day. Thanks everyone for listening in for a minute, and hope this is of good information for your upcoming tournaments. Preston Combs, Flatstick Academy.